All right, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to talk about the importance of servicing your automatic transmission. Um, you know, it's something that we should know a little bit more about and think a little bit more about when it comes to the reliability of our vehicles. They are very expensive. I did a replacement transmission not too long ago that was like $6,000. So it's there's something that's getting pretty expensive, and um, I think that taking a little bit of care with them is going to go a long ways. So I got a few things to go over. First of all, I want to talk about the myth that you don't touch a automatic transmission. So we we've heard you just don't mess with them because if you mess with them, they're going to go out. Well, I think that where that came from was probably back in the day when, uh, cars only went 100,000 miles. It was okay to have that kind of mindset. And I think that it was just maybe poor timing or coincidence that, people had those experiences. Um, because if you think about it, your transmission operates at the same temperature as your engine. It's right around 200 degrees, and yeah, it doesn't have the combustion in it. It doesn't have um, the stuff coming from through the rings to contaminate the fluid, but it is running at the same temperature, and it does have debris coming off of the clutches, and it does have things going on. And anything, yes, it does have most transmissions have a filter. Not all of them do, and the particulates do go through that filter. But I still feel like that stuff that's floating around in there for 300,000 miles or whatever is in your transmission, and it's not a bad thing to get it out of there. And today we got the 8 speed, 10 speed transmissions. So there's a lot more friction going on in there. There's a lot more friction material to come off, and so a lot more stuff to be floating around. The other thing too is you're gonna have all that stuff in the pan. Yeah, it does have a filter, but you're clogging up that filter and reducing the amount of flow that can be put through that transmission. So servicing them is very good. Typically, a filter service is called for around 100 to 150,000 miles. I'm a fan of, like, let's change the fluid at 50,000 and then go ahead and do the filter service at 100,000, and then again at 150 change the fluid, and I used to be on that don't touch it kind of mentality, and I'll tell you what changed my mind on that. My wife has a 2012 Honda Odyssey, and that thing started bucking and doing all kinds of weird things. It was throwing codes and just doing all kinds of weird stuff. And I thought, man, this thing needs a transmission. There's no way around it. But I was like, well, we're gonna go ahead and service it and see if that makes it. I was not hopeful. At that point, I thought, man, this thing's gone. Well, I went ahead and serviced it, just changed the fluid in it, and at that point, it hadn't been done in like 100,000 miles. So I went ahead and drained it, filled it, drained it, filled it, drained it, filled it, and that was probably when I did that for the first time. Was probably 100,000 miles ago now, again, and I never did put another transmission in it. What I do on that particular vehicle, it only holds 4 quarts. It only drains out like 4 quarts. So every 2 or 3 oil changes now, I do the transmission as well. Anytime we're about to go on a big long journey, I change that transmission fluid. And I'm not going to say it's perfect. It still has a hard shift here and there, but like I said, since we started doing that, we got another 100,000 miles out of it, and it's not throwing codes anymore. It's not doing all the weird stuff that it was doing, and that right there made me realize that changing the fluid is very important. Um, I will go ahead and talk about the prices a little bit. So something like that doesn't have a filter and is a very small amount of fluid. You could expect to pay as little as $100 for that service. But if you have a Chevy truck that has an 8-speed transmission and it takes 8 quarts to do the service and a filter, and you got to get it up on a lift and all that kind of stuff, you're looking at probably like could be up to $500. I think usually on those I'm usually around 300 or $400, but I mean, you go to the dealer or something like that, I could see it getting up to $500. And then don't confuse a transmission service with a flush, because a transmission service and a flush are two completely different things. um since I was just talking about price, a flush would be up to $700-800 at the dealer. um I think they charge $750 here in our town for a big transmission, because you're putting a lot more fluid through it. And essentially what you're doing when you flush a transmission, you're hooking a machine to it that's pushing all the old fluid out and getting new fluid throughout the whole thing. So you're getting a lot more contaminants out of there. Now, flush on some transmissions, it could go either way. It could make it better, or it could clog up an orifice and make it worse. So, flush is kind of a gamble. A lot of people don't do that unless they are experiencing bad transmission problems, and it's kind of like a last ditch effort. But I just think, like what I've talked about before, I don't think that we have the luxury of waiting to that point. I think that if we're really trying to save money overall, we need to stay on top of these fluid changes and filter changes, and treat our transmissions a little bit better than we have in the past. Try to get out of that mentality of like, don't touch it, just let it do its thing, because we're seeing a lot of transmission failures at 150,000 miles, and like I said, I've been servicing this one regularly in my wife's van, and it's at 300,000 miles on the original transmission. I mean, if it went out tomorrow, I'd be like, man, you did a good job. So, like I said, fluid at 50, maybe even sooner than that. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to do it at 30. And then definitely a filter change at 100,000 if you have a filter. And yeah, I think that like I said, I just think that with today's vehicles being so expensive and the repairs being so expensive, you're not getting at even a cheap transmission. The cheapest you're going to do on a rebuild is going to be $2,500. And your vehicle is going to be down for at least a week, 2 weeks, and then, the warranty on a transmission rebuild, some places are going to warranty it. I mean, I don't know. There's horror stories about transmission shops. Something goes wrong and then the vehicle ends up sitting there. I've heard of it. I just heard about it the other day. So servicing your transmission is definitely something you need to try to put at the top of the list of things that you want to do to your vehicle if you want to keep it reliable and keep it going and get as much out of it as you can. There's always part failure. A clutch could come apart or something could always go wrong, but definitely why make it harder on it? Why not try to give it the best shot that it can to survive as long as possible? So, but I think that's all I have on that. Like, if you have any questions about any of these videos that I do, or if there's any questions about any other service that you might have done to your vehicle, like I said, always say, just drop it in the comments, and we'll make a video on it. And just want to try to help educate people, and have them know what their car needs and the questions asked when they go to get it serviced. And like I said, if you have any questions that I'm not answering, just drop them in the comments, and I will definitely get to it, make a video about it, whatever. But like I always say here at Garage Ministries, we're just trying to help you live a little bit better life.